Well, as those pro-gun rallies were being held across the United States this weekend, we decided to get a closer look. And for that, we spoke to Richard Feldman, the president of the Independent Firearms Owners Association, and Michael Shank from George Mason University. I began by asking about Obama's latest proposals to curb gun violence.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what ultimately comes out of the Senate. But the final arbiter of the legislation is going to be the House of Representatives on this one. And I think that somewhere between a universal background check on most firearm transfers and a background check at gun shows alone, something between those two is going to ultimately emerge. Now, there are some other non-controversial issues: enhanced penalties for gun trafficking, straw man purchases. I'm certain that's going to pass.
Michael, I want to get your take on this. Do you think Obama's proposals are too lax, or is it a good middle ground? Because we're hearing a lot of rhetoric surrounding this debate.
It's a good start. Pew USA Today did a poll last week showing strong American support for a ban on assault weapons, a ban on high-capacity magazines, online sales, gun show loophole, and also universal checks, like Richard mentioned. I think it's a good start. I think where we need to go is somewhere where New York State is headed. And I think the strongest analogy is with cars. Cars could be weapons, which is why we train people to drive them, we license them, we permit them, we insure them and register them. Not unlike a car, a gun could be a weapon used in similar ways. So New York State is heading in the direction of permitting, licensing, training, registering, so we can track them, train them, and have responsible and safe use in the public sphere of guns, not unlike with cars.
Well, I want to ask Richard this, because obviously it seems like there has been a lot of support with Americans overall, but why the holdup? Why the pushback from the Republican side of the debate?
Gun owners in this country are not prepared to, that don't misuse their guns, to give up their Second Amendment rights to continue to own the kind of guns that are commonly owned today by tens of millions of Americans. And when you look at polling data, polls are interesting, they're useful, but the only poll that matters is the one taken on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November every other years. That's the poll that decides who goes back to the Congress and who looks for a job somewhere else.
Well, Richard, I want to ask you one quick question, and then I'll get to Michael's take on this. For those gun owners who feel that way, is there a solution to Newtown? We haven't really heard much other than, you know, maybe it's these other issues, but there hasn't really been any solutions given by that side to prevent something like that from happening again.
The problem is it's a multifaceted problem requiring multifaceted answers. There's no single solution, especially when you talk about the crazed gunman, the hardest of all the firearm misusages to address in public policy. Far more frequently is the intentional criminal misuse of a gun, which has some answers. We just don't focus on the problem in a way that lends itself to solutions.
You know, the guns that were used in the Newtown massacre were legal. They were bought and obtained legally. So I want to get your response to that.
Well, and I want to pivot back to Richard's point about multifaceted, because it is multifaceted, and that's why we need to look at other issues like poverty and inequality, which correlate strongly with violence and gun violence. Or lead. Some people found in surveys that lead corresponds strongly with gun violence. But looking at the 23 executive orders, one is appointing a director for the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives. One is encouraging several cabinet members to facilitate a nationwide conversation on mental health. But to talk about mental health for a second, the problem around this debate is that mental health has become the scapegoat. In fact, mental health and mental illness is a small fraction of gun violence nationally. And so to hold all of this around mental illness and do we have better mental health data, yes, we need to link up better mental health data, and we need better funding for the National Instant Criminal Background Check System. We need all of that. But it is multifaceted, and unfortunately, going forward in the 113th Congress, it will probably be distilled down to assault weapons ban and a ban on high-capacity magazines.
Richard Feldman, thank you for your time. Michael Shank here in Washington, D.C. We appreciate it.
Appreciate your time.